or on this computer.
It's ready now. Yeah. That looks like my ease.
Well, thank you and welcome. Glad you could join us this evening. Unfortunately, we do not have a quorum tonight. However, that will not deter us. We'll go ahead and listen to your presentations and ask questions if that's okay. We don't have any action items that we have to attend to on the meeting tonight, so all that can wait. So with that, I will turn it over to whichever one of you two wants to start talking, or three. Sorry, maybe Rochelle has some comments.
No, that's okay. I'm ready to hand it over to FCS, but they, just to summarize the staff report really quick, we've been working with them since 2021 September, and ESA has subcontracted out to FCS, but they've completed their SDC fee and lieu methodology update, and the purpose of tonight's meeting is to receive that information and then ask any questions that we would like for clarification while we have Doug and Zach on the phone. And with that, I do have your presentation if you want me to share my screen. Otherwise, Doug, how would you guys prefer that? I can share my screen, or would you like to roll?
If you would go ahead and let me share from my screen, that would be perfect.
Absolutely. Should we take one?
We'll do that.
Okay, Doug, you are the host.
Well, welcome. Can I get anybody anything?
Yeah.
Oh, can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. So we're gonna start the show here. Wonderful. Well, I am Doug Gabbard, and I'm a project manager with FCS Group. I am joined by Zach Hazel, who has been doing a tremendous amount of work on this project. So we'd like to share with you tonight our results for the Parks SDC and fee in lieu. And so we'll begin by offering a little background on SDCs in general, and just remind you kind of what they are and what they're for. And then we will give you some detailed calculations of both the SDC and the fee in lieu, and then we'll talk about implementation. This is kind of a preview of the kind of presentation that we would make to a city council. In fact, the presentation we make to the city council should probably look a lot like this. And so you're kind of on the ground floor of that. So we begin with some background. SDCs are one-time charges. They are not ongoing rates. Nobody receives a monthly bill for a system development charge. They are paid at the time of development, which can include redevelopment if there is intensification of a land use. The Oregon law allows for SDCs to be charged for 5 and only 5 services. Those are water, wastewater, stormwater, transportation, and parks. Different states, different rules, but those are Oregon's. SDCs are for capital only, both in the way they are calculated and in the way they are used. And there are important linkages between ways that the SDCs are calculated and how the money can be spent. SDCs can include both an existing and future components, meaning that we can charge SDCs based upon capacity that you have available now, and also capacity that will be available for future users embedded in the projects that you have on your project list. And the final point would be that SDCs are a share of a system. You're not paying for specific assets or specific projects that are close to you or that you're going to benefit from. SDCs are designed to buy into the system as a whole. Well, one of the reasons it's important to have a consultant help you is because SDCs are heavily regulated by the law. And for Oregon, that law is found in ORS Chapter 223. Now, the whole thing from Section 297 to Section 314, you could read all of that in half an hour. It's a little dense, but it's readable, and you could do it. And we encourage everyone who makes policy in this area to actually read the SDC law. You can get through it all in about 30 minutes. But as we turn to math, let's look at kind of a schematic of what goes into a system development charge calculation. I mentioned earlier there are up to two layers, one based upon an existing component, one based upon a future component. Well, in the SDC law, those two layers have names. The reimbursement fee is the part of an SDC that is based upon the eligible value of unused capacity in existing facilities. The improvement fee is based upon the eligible cost of planned capacity increasing facilities. In other words, the eligible cost of an improvement fee are the cost of your projects to the extent to which they will provide capacity for future users. Well, you take both of those cost bases and you divide them by the growth in system demand, and those are typically the same numbers for both reimbursement and improvement fees, and you end up with a reimbursement fee and an improvement fee, and together they make up the total SDC that you are allowed to charge. I say allowed to charge because this is foreshadowing. The role of an SDC calculation is to justify the maximum amount that you can comfortably and legally charge. It is not a mandate. The city is not required to charge the amount that an SDC consultant calculates. It should be considered a ceiling. You shouldn't go above it, but anything up to that amount is fine in the eyes of the law. Now, an additional wrinkle in Sandy is you have a fee in lieu of land dedication. And so developers have a responsibility, which is completely appropriate, to provide for growth-related parkland, and that can be done in the form of land dedication if an acceptable parcel is available. But if not, that requirement can also be met by a fee in lieu of land dedication. So how much should the fee be? Well, that's the whole game that we're playing here. The fee is based upon the estimated cost of undeveloped land and the future level of service of park acres per resident. Now, we use that term future level of service as a foreshadowing of the approach we used to calculate your new fee in lieu, but whether it's based upon the future or not, there is some level of service that is calculated to multiply by the cost per acre. And you see the schematic here, cost per acre times future acres per resident, or some measure of acres per resident, gives you the total fee in lieu per resident. And then that number gets multiplied by whatever estimate of occupancy for different types of land uses to get the total fee in lieu. So let's see how that works. And let's, as a way of segueing to your current SDC and fee in lieu, as a way of jumping into the journey of what we have calculated for you. So according to our information, your current SDC for parks is $3,717 per single family dwelling unit. That's what a single family dwelling unit would pay in parks SDCs. The current fee in lieu is $3,109 per single family dwelling unit, based upon an estimated cost of $241,000 per acre, 43 10,000ths of an acre per resident, leading to a charge of $1,036 per resident, multiplied by 3 residents per single family residence, which is your current estimate of occupancy. And we're going to be making changes to all these numbers, but that leads to the $3,109 that you currently charge for the fee in lieu. Well, that leads us to the calculations that we have done for your new SDC and your new fee in lieu. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Zach.
Thank you, Doug. All right. So we're going to start off here with a summary look at the full system development charge calculation. And that top line there says that the max allowable SDC for a single family dwelling unit is $22,436. And like Doug said, that is the maximum. That is not what you're obliged to charge. That's just the calculated maximum SDC. And that's based on a couple of components here. I'm going to just walk through these briefly since we're going to go in detail soon. The total cost basis that we're dividing by is $53 million. That's divided by a growth in residents of just shy of 6,500. And that gives you a total SDC per resident of $8,219. When you apply that using the average occupancy of a single family dwelling unit, that works out to be $22,436 for a single family dwelling unit. And now we're going to talk about the details of all of these numbers here, starting with growth. So in 2020, the population was 12,612 people. We're expecting by 2035, the end of the planning period, to have 19,100 people. That growth is 6,500 people. And that is the denominator that you just saw in the SDC calculation. That's the denominator of the whole calculation. And then on the far right there, you see another number called the growth share, which is just shy of 34%. And that's a really important number. That percentage basically tells you in 2035, what percentage of your total population will have arrived between now and then, or what percentage of your 2035 population will be considered growth. And it works out to be just shy of 34%, which is a useful number in SDC calculations, as you'll see on the next slide. So this is your infill project list. These are all of your projects that add amenities to your existing park system. We're not talking adding new park acres. We're not talking adding additional trail miles. We're talking adding park benches, playgrounds, whatever, to the system you already have. You can see the name of the park that is affected by each project. The total cost there works out to be just shy of $4 million. Now, for those park projects that are actually adding amenities, they're going to get the growth share percentage you see there in that middle white column. That is telling us that those park amenities that are being added to these projects, we assume that they'll be shared roughly equally between existing and future users. Therefore, future users should pay for their percentage of the total park system, 33.97%. Some of these projects get a 0% eligibility, and that's because those projects are really more related to repair or major replacement, not adding new amenities. And then in the far right there, taking the total cost times the eligibility, that gives you the eligible cost, which works out to be just over 1.1 million for the infill list. But we have a second list, which is called the expansion list. Now, these projects actually do add tangible, countable acres or trail miles to your park system. So you can see each of the parks named there with their type in the second column there, which is an important data point we'll use in a second. And the total cost is in that first white column there for $49 million for park projects where you're adding additional parks. And you're going to add, you can see in that second white column there, almost 70 acres of additional parks to your system. But that will include some absorption of other park acres you have, which you can see in the far right. So basically switching undeveloped land that you already own into a park. So the important total here is going to be 49 million, and we're adding almost 70 acres of park projects. Also on the expansion list are any trail projects that you guys are going to build. And there's actually quite a list here. So if you would just click through, Doug, to get to the summary at the end. All right, there you go. You can see that we're adding $8.5 million in trail projects. And that works out to be 24 miles of additional trail miles. All right. Now you'll notice that we didn't apply the growth share to any of those projects to figure out how much was SDC eligible. We actually have a more detailed and better system when you're adding tangible trail miles or park acres to the system. And we're going to be using level of service calculations to figure out the eligibility. So we can do this in a couple different ways, and I'll talk about all of them briefly. The first major way is measuring level of service by your current system. And we can do that in one of two ways. We can categorize each park into its respective category, such as neighborhood park or mini park, community park, or we can aggregate things and measure them by unit of measurement. And you see that in the top and bottom panel. So if you're measuring by unit of measurement, that would mean you're just measuring total acres and you don't care about the category of the park. So the level of service calculation is what allows us to determine the eligibility percentage of respective projects based on their category or by unit of measurement. And let me walk through briefly how that works. We're going to use the neighborhood parks line as an example there. That second line from the top in the category method. Right now, you have 16.89 acres of neighborhood park. That works out to be 1.34 acres per 1,000 residents. That's your current level of service for neighborhood parks. The parks project list is going to add 22.4 acres of additional neighborhood park by the end of the planning period. However, if you were to maintain your level of service, 1.34 acres per 1,000 residents, you would only need 8.69 acres of additional neighborhood parks that you see there in the the fourth column. Which means that you're actually overbuilding. You're adding 22.4 when you only needed 8.69 relative to your current level of service. So only 8.69 out of 22.4 acres of neighborhood parks are eligible. And that's where you see that 38, almost 39% in the far right for neighborhood parks. Now, neighborhood parks worked out to be unfavorably there, but some of these other categories like mini parks there actually worked out to be 100% eligible. And in fact, when you look at the unit of measurement approach at the bottom, when you aggregate all of your parks into just a generic acre, you can get 100% eligibility under your current level of service. But there's another option, which is to measure by future level of service rather than current. And the calculations work out a little differently when you measure this way. So again, using neighborhood parks as an example, you can see all the same statistics there on the left. You're adding 22.4 acres of neighborhood parks. What that means is in 2035, your future level of service will be 2.06 acres per 1,000 residents. If you took that future level of service and applied it to your existing population, you would need to have a minimum of 25.94 acres of neighborhood parks. Now, you currently only have 16.89, which is on that far left there, which means that when measuring by future level of service, you're actually deficient in neighborhood parks. And since we can't ask developers to pay for projects that they don't need, that the system needs, but not them, we can only grab those neighborhood park projects that are related to growth, and that works out to be just shy of 60% that you see there in the eligibility column. Now, when measuring by future unit measurement, at the bottom right there, encircled in red, you still get that 100% eligibility for parks projects, and you actually get 48% eligibility for trail projects using all of the same calculations I've just described. And indeed, if we had the data to calculate a reimbursement fee, the existing cost component of the SDC, we would have some reimbursable acres on the far right there, 60.67. But we didn't quite have the data to finish the reimbursement fee calculation, so we're only going to be focusing on the improvement fee. All right, so this monster of a table, we're really only care about the bottom right here. So this is the full cost of the project list, and that's both the expansion list and the infill list. And we're going to focus on the bottom right here, which is the future level of service by unit of measurement. So you can see the expansion projects totals for eligible cost is 53 million. And when you add in the infill projects of 1.1 million, that works out to be just over 54 million in the far bottom right number. So that is the eligible cost of your project list. We do have to make some adjustments here, and you can see on the far right here, we're actually subtracting your current improvement fee fund balance, basically because any leftover improvement fee fund balance represents projects that you didn't build, but you've already collected funds for. So because we want to avoid double counting, we're going to remove that fund balance. So we get a improvement fee cost basis of almost 3 million. And then here you can see all four methods side by side in comparison. But remember, since we're calculating the maximum SDC, we're just trying to figure out which of these methods works out to be the highest SDC. And that turns out to be the future level of service by unit of measurement that you see on the far right there. And that's, again, $22,436 for a single family residence. Okay, and then the fee in lieu is going to be a lot quicker. This one's pretty simple. The current cost per acre that you see at the top there is $869,000, which is a little bit higher than your current cost per acre. And that's based on some recent data that we collected from the, I can't remember who we collected it from, but Doug knows.
County assessor.
Thank you. So that is the most recent data. It's pretty high. When you take that and you apply that to the targeted acres per resident of 0.0068, that works out to be a calculated fee in lieu per resident of $5,911. And then applying it in the same way that we applied the SDC to different development types, that works out to be $16,000 for a single family dwelling unit. So here is the full summary. This is the maximum SDC plus the maximum fee in lieu. That works out to be $38,571 for a single family dwelling unit that you can see there in the middle of this panel.
All right, so let's talk about some implementation issues, and we begin with the crowd pleasing favorite of the comparison table. So this compares your current SDC and the maximum calculated SDC that Zach just showed you. This is only for SDCs. This does not include a fee in lieu. Very difficult to compare fees in lieu. Number one, because there aren't that many of them. Number two, there is no legal framework for how they are calculated. So there's absolutely no way to know for sure that you're comparing apples to apples. So we recommend sticking with comparing SDCs because those are calculated in a similar way. This table will show you that there's potential for Sandy to have a very high Parks SDC, even relative to a bunch of other jurisdictions in the metro area. Finally, we kind of leave you with the funding plan, and as before, we're focusing on the far right with the red box. We show you all of these four approaches just to reinforce that that we turned over every rock essentially. We're not asking you to make a selection among these four approaches because it's like looking at 4 X-rays to make one diagnosis. And so all of these approaches are legally justifiable. And as Zach quite correctly said, we're looking at all 4 approaches to see which one yields the highest maximum allowable SDC. Now, having said that, this table here is designed to show you or to remind you that even if you charge the highest SDC you can, and even if you charge the highest fee in lieu that you can, you're still going to need to get some additional money to complete your project list. And in this case, you're with a total project list of $61.8 million, which does not include land acquisition, and then adding another 62 million of land acquisition on top of that. It's going to be about $124 million if you had to pay cash for it. We're assuming no dedicated land. And if in order to pay $124 million, you'd need all of your SDCs, all of your fees in lieu, plus another $31.5 million. And so we want to remind you that you will need to get that other money from non-SDC sources. And furthermore, if you choose to charge an SDC or fee in lieu that is lower than what we are calculating, which you are perfectly entitled to do, then that other needed revenue just goes up from there. And that's more money that you will have to find from some other source. And with that, we're going to pause and we're going to entertain any questions you may have and help you have as much enthusiasm for SDCs as we do.
Fantastic. Will, what do you got for us for questions?
Yeah, Doug, could you go back a slide, please?
Yes, sir.
So the bottom line, the land acquisition costs, I'm struggling with the 62. We have a decent inventory, I believe, of land already, and that, is that considered in this number at all?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Well, you said it didn't include dedicated land, but I believe we have I thought we had a decent inventory of land.
We do, but it doesn't account. They're accounting for all the additional land we need to
This
fulfill
is
the
net,
master
is
plan.
this net, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm good.
And furthermore, so it is based only on the land that you need, and it's but we are also assuming that you're not going to get any of that from the traditional dedication process.
Thank you.
Beck, do you have any questions?
I guess my main question is, why is the SDC so different, the current one? And is it because it was calculated using different methodology or outdated methodology?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer it. But I know that in the past we have touched layers, specific layers. Your Parks SDC in the past has existed in various layers, like Trails was its own SDC, for example. And here we are combining them all into Parks SDC. SDCs tend to be driven by the project lists. And so that might have some answers, but I'm probably not in a position to do the necessary archaeology to compare it to the last methodology.
You didn't have to notice when it was done prior, did you?
Well, it would depend which layer you're talking about. I know that we touched a trails layer at the same time that we touched the transportation SDC some years ago, when I was a relative whippersnapper in this business. So, but I don't think we've touched the Parks SDC comprehensively ever. So I don't know.
We don't know when these SDCs were approved.
I think if my history is accurate, I think in 2013, there was a resolution for the original SDC. And then there was different iterations, like Doug was saying, that went through. There was a Trails resolution 2016-08, which took effect in 2016. So that could be why too, because the last time it was looked at, according to what I've dug up, was 2013. So, yeah.
And I guess also we don't know, I mean, it sounds like the city doesn't have to use the maximum, and maybe we don't know if the calculated.
Right, it may have been
But,
below the maximum.
yeah.
That's entirely possible.
Any other questions? Did I hear you correct? So you did not calculate reimbursement SDCs?
That is correct.
And
In theory, they can be calculated. The reimbursement fees tend to be a bigger lift data wise. It puts a little bit of a burden on the finance folks to get us the kind of data we need. Also, but I think there was some consensus that we didn't need to make this higher. But yes, you are theoretically entitled. You do have reimbursable capacity that it could be costed out if we had the right data for it. And let's just talk about that, since
yeah, I wanted to go back to the infill. No, not the infill. The one with the existing parks.
so I think you're talking about this one.
No, it was one that listed the existing parks.
Oh, okay.
Percentages. Right, that one. That'll work. Okay, so looking at that, let's take Bornstead because that's a fairly recent one. It says 33.97% eligibility for that. If we did a reimbursement fee, would that be able to boost the percentage regardless of what the fee is that we end up charging?
Okay, let's be careful. We're talking about two different things here. So what you're seeing on this slide, does really not have anything to do with the existing version of these parks. The
Yeah.
list that you see in front of you has to do with specific projects on your project list that will be implemented within the footprints of these park facilities.
Right.
So these are the costs of projects that will be done in these facilities. And those projects, the ones that are not zero eligibility, those projects will add amenities that will make the parks usable to more people. This has nothing, this is all part of the improvement fee. This has nothing to do with the reimbursement fee. And the reimbursement fee is completely separate. The reimbursement fee is driven by the level of service calculation that Zach was showing you earlier. And it's all about the level of service you have now and the level of service that you have in the future. For example, when we take your parks, all the parks facilities that are measured in acres, you have a current level of service of 22.1 acres per thousand, but your future level of service will only be 17.29 acres per thousand, which means you have more than you need today, which makes some of that reimbursable. So when we calculate a reimbursable quantity, we're not looking at specific park facilities and saying, oh, nobody's using that, let's say that that's available for future growth. It's not, we're not sending people out with clipboards to find out what park facilities are underutilized. Rather, it's a completely mathematical calculation where we determine where is your future level of service going to be lower than it is now. And that's where the reimbursable capacity exists. Does that help?
Well, yes and no. I'm still not done picking at this one.
All right, let's go.
Okay, so with the reimbursables, that's buying into the existing system, not buying into the future system, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so going back to Bornstead, we have a water feature out there. Water feature's lifespan is 15 years. In 15 years, if we had a reimbursement fee, we would be able to apply that towards rehabbing that water feature. I do not believe we would be able to apply the other SDC towards rehabbing that water feature.
That's absolutely right. So that's an excellent point. If you do have a reimbursement fee, you get to spend that reimbursement fee even on projects that don't create growth or that don't accommodate growth. And so that can be a good reason to have a reimbursement fee. For improvement fee monies, you can only spend that on the projects,
right,
the projects that create growth, and only to the extent that they accommodate growth.
Right, it's adding capacity to the existing park.
Yep. So yeah, you're 100% right about that.
As opposed to refurbishing. Okay. So my point is, if we had a reimbursement fee, regardless of dollar amount, say the council takes a look at this and says, you know, realistically, it's going to be a political decision. It's not going to be a mathematical decision that does this. But if the council takes a look at that and says, you know what, our tolerance for our community is going to be $10,000 in SDCs. If we had a reimbursement fee that showed a small amount, would it be possible to bank a portion of that $10,000, say 5% of it, 10% of it, whatever it is, into a separate fund for reimbursing or for rehabbing existing facilities as they end their lifespan? The other 85, 90% of it, whatever it is, would go towards adding capacity to that park at roughly 33%, or I guess on Bornstead it was, yeah, 33%, I think it was.
Well, if so, let's say you had a portion of your SDC designated as reimbursement fee, then that you would want to every time an SDC is collected, you would want to designate how much of that is improvement fee and how much is in reimbursement fee, and you'd want to keep an accounting of what you have available of improvement fee and reimbursement fee. And then whatever has been collected in reimbursement fees can be spent on parks projects, even if they don't accommodate growth. But you'll need to keep an accounting of what the two kinds of fees, the reimbursement and the improvement fee. You'll have to keep an accounting of what's flowing in and what's flowing out separately.
The next question is indexing the fees.
Yes,
Is it possible to index for inflation?
it's more than it's advised. It's specifically allowed in the statute. It's a best practice because all these project costs, we don't have to guess about what future construction costs are going to be, because you can index the fee to the actual inflation that actually happens. And so after the cost index moves, you can adjust the SDCs to be charged in the future based upon that movement in the index. So it takes all the guesswork about hedging against inflation. So that is a best practice.
And we can do that even if we choose not to levy the full $22,000.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And furthermore, you have, if you don't levy the full fee, you have more choices. So you can do the indexing exactly as I've just described, and each year bring forward some resolution that says, hey, the underlying index moved X%, therefore we're raising the SDC X%. You can absolutely do that. But
so that will still take an action by the council, correct?
yeah, but not the notice, not a public hearing. It can go on the consent calendar.
Okay.
But you have an additional option if you're not charging the full justified SDC. You can pre-plan escalation up to the full amount of the calculated SDC if you want to. In other words, you can, instead of giving control over to a cost index, you can retain control and have the SDC phase in by whatever percentage or percentages you like over whatever period of years that you like. This is something that we recently did, and it wasn't even our idea. We just recognized that it was kind of genius. This is something that happened out in Hermiston. In Hermiston, there was no appetite for implementing the high SDCs that we calculated. We did multiple SDCs for them in one big analysis, and there was no appetite to implement the high SDCs that we calculated. But what they chose to do was they put the escalation of their SDCs on autopilot, and they escalate by a certain percentage each year. This is in the resolution that they implemented. And I want to say 10 to 20 years of this until they gets to their maximum. And that means that, city council can jump off of that schedule anytime they want. It just, anything you can do with a resolution, you can undo with a resolution.
Okay.
But as long as no action is taken, they are on autopilot to step up each year until they eventually get to the full calculated SDC. That's pretty smart.
And can you move that ceiling at the same time on the index, indexed with the inflation?
Well, now you're getting into something that's kind of difficult. In theory, yes, you can. In practice, don't do it.
Okay. How about the fee in lieu? Can we index that for inflation?
Well, so now you're really into the wild, wild west. The fee in lieu does not have a statutory framework the way SDCs do. So with SDCs, there is a specific provision that says you can index charges with a simple act of council. You don't need a public hearing. There ain't anything like that for fees and lieux. Those are just
Discretionary at the,
yeah, there's no uniform framework. Those are just
Yeah.
exactions. And so I can't tell you that you cannot do it, but I would consult carefully with your city attorney about that. Certainly one thing that's true about fees in lieu is that you don't have the same requirements for process that SDCs do, and the inputs for fees in lieu, as you just saw a moment ago, are pretty simple. There they are, and there's nothing stopping you, I don't think, from just updating. What you'd want to mainly update is the land cost.
yes.
I would be careful. I would be careful about adjusting the other inputs, because as we are presenting them to you, they are consistent with the SDC calculation, because things like level of service, residents per dwelling unit, those are the same figures that we were using for both the SDC and the fee in lieu. And I would caution you against breaking that consistency, but I don't see any reason why you couldn't update the land cost whenever you thought it was appropriate.
Land cost is so volatile that you just don't know.
Yeah.
So it just kind of makes sense to me if we could do that, but that's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
I think it does make sense.
Okay, that's 87% of my questions, so I'll let you guys know.
That's a B. That's a solid B.
I thought you were a little B plus, but that's just me. Hey, Doug, could you go back to the comparison chart with the different municipalities?
C.
Yeah. So is there any way, and this is probably a stretch, of saying when their SDC, so let's just take Tiger to 10-345, what year that was established?
That would be a research project.
Yeah, okay. Just curious, because this is, talk about palatable versus not palatable. This is a tough one. And, if that was back in 1998, then, I'd have a much better case than if it's 2017.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Just taking a shot. Thanks.
Yeah. What I can tell you is that these SDCs are current as of the date that we actually took the survey, which wasn't that long ago. The things that folks are sometimes curious about that may be surprisingly difficult to figure out is when were these implemented initially? Are they in the process of thinking about redoing them now? Did they implement at a number lower than they were entitled to implement? These are all things that folks are curious about, and it's devilishly hard to find, because what we know is what they put in the resolution, and typically what they put in the resolution is how much they're going to charge.
And you're not going to know what's in process either. So they could be looking at Sandy and saying, well, Sandy's this low. Yeah, got it. Thanks, Doug.
You bet.
Anything else?
These are, these are fees for the developers. This is a
Right.
clarification, right? So the
That's
jump is, if we were to implement the maximum, that would have a chilling effect on development, potentially.
Well, the developers will tell you that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
And the reality is they're typically paid when they're pulling permits. So they'll go in, they'll get their plat, everything will be good. The developer will go in, they'll pull their permits, they'll pay all their SDCs, or they'll work out an arrangement to pay them over a little bit of time. It's the end user that really pays it. So if the developer builds the house, they sell it to you,
So that's gonna get, okay, so
Right.
that's sort of what, since I'm unfamiliar with this whole thing, they get the charges up front, but. it's-
Yeah, well, of course.
now.
Yes, they will tell you that it's all it's money out of their pocket. It is not correctly
Right,
or indirectly, they get reimbursed for it.
but what that'll do then in sort of practicality is rates.
Yes, and if you own a home, you can make the argument, well, the value of my house has went up by $22,000. If you want to buy a house, then that just went $22,000 further out of reach. So it can be not a good thing for a lot.
And,
Yeah.
oh, by the way, you also get infrastructure. Which is one of the things that's sometimes lost in this conversation, is that this is not just a tax that's pulling money out of the development process. It is providing something that is much needed, and
Right.
something that would often be, cities would often be hard pressed to provide with other funds.
Right, and the take that argument a step further, you can do a little bit of research and find out that, you know, just from looking at comparables and sales of houses that are sold within a certain proximity to a park or a trail of a higher value than other houses.
They're marketed as such. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everything is, you know, when you see, you know, I live in Zion Meadows, so nice and open, but you know, it could have been called Zion Rooftops, and it probably wouldn't have been as attractive to me to buy.
No, I totally, yeah, totally. I totally understand that. That's a good point to make, is that not to lose sight of the fact that the funds would actually go towards our parks. So,
Right, it's not just
It's
going
not
into
just-
a developer pocket. Out of their pocket.
out of their
Yeah.
pocket.
All righty. What else do you have for us tonight?
I'm out, man.
Well, any other questions? No, staff, you guys have any questions?
No, thank you. And Zach, that was very, very informative. I really appreciate the information. I'm learning a lot. So thank you.
We love this stuff. So thank you for listening to our shtick.
Your enthusiasm came through.
I enjoyed it very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, guys.
All right. Thank you.
All righty, well, boy, we can wrap up here because we can't really do much. So, Rochelle, you want to talk to us a little bit about the longest day Parkway?
Yeah, sure. So right in front of you, we provided some flyers. So it is June 23rd, 6:30 to 8 o'clock. And there's a map that shows this year's route. And I believe in the past, and maybe Don, you can answer this or speak to this, but I think the Parks Board has been involved, that had a booth.
Yes, when I first came to Sandy was the last time they did, you know, pandemic started happening, things went right. But my understanding was that, yes, they did have a booth at that point.
Okay. One of the things that I was hoping to talk to the group about tonight is if that was something that the Parks Board was interested in, if the group wanted to have a booth during the Longest Day Parkway. So what the event is, people show up, they register for it, and they walk, and there's booths along the way, and there's city booths. And the fire department will be there this year. And all the departments get to talk about all the things that they're doing and working on. And so yeah, it's kind of an opportunity to get the community out, learn a little bit about the city, what the Parks Board does, if you want to participate in that, and something to think about if the Parks Board wanted to hand out popcorn or something. I don't know. If there's if there's anything that you'll like to do and participate in.
I would be more than happy to hand a booth for a couple hours.
Yeah, definitely. Some around.
Yeah, that's my issue right now, is back to traveling. Yeah, that'd be cool to have a master, big 4x8 master plan on a piece of plywood.
Everybody loves a map.
Yeah. Do the red X's on.
Yeah. Yeah, then all go find their house.
And I can send an email correspondence to see if, assume that the park board wants to participate, we can get 1 or 2 people, and even if our department's going to have a booth, so even if, some of the parks folks wants to join us at our booth, absolutely send that. So,
Yeah.
okay, I'll follow up with an email on that.
Yeah, it's hard, it's just hard for me to predict out that far. It'd be gone. But if I'm in town,
Excellent.
Okay.
Right, any other staff updates?
Well, Chelsea is new.
Oh, yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Chelsea. This is my 3rd week here. A little bit of background. I grew up in Gresham. I've lived in Rhododendron for about the past 8 years. I went to East Northern University. I have a bachelor's in business administration. And after I graduated from there, I basically went pretty much right up to Timberline, and I worked in their sales and catering department for about 7 years. And then COVID happened. I decided to pursue kind of a long goal of working with seniors. So I worked at a memory care assisted living facility in Gresham, and I did activities with the residents for the last 2 years. And then I saw this and it worked out great. And so I'm excited to be part of the team.
That's 10 miles closer to home.
Very much so. Yeah, I moved here from Baker City.
Oh, okay.
it's a nice part of the state.
It was beautiful.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Working with it.
Yeah, we're pleased to have her. So, yep. You want me to go with the director's report?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So you should have received, I believe we're going to be doing interviews for the Parks and Trails Advisory Board, the 2 vacant positions. We had 6 applicants, so we'll be working on scheduling that. And so it'll be the interview, and then the recommendations will go to the council. And so hopefully we'll have those vacancies filled within the next couple months, which will be great. And then at the last council meeting, there was a discussion about the community campus and what to do with the closed aquatic facility. The decision was made based on some recommendation by the Pool Exploratory Task Force, which we've previously gone through that staff report that information to but basically reconfiguring or rebuilding that site was going to be very cost prohibitive to do. And so the Pool Exploratory Task Force said, let's build somewhere else on the site. And based on those findings and being fiscally responsible, we were given the thumbs up to drain the pool. So that is something that we'll be working towards. So we'll be retiring those systems and draining the facility, the pool. And then along with that conversation, the council did talk about a request for a proposal, which would be to go out and hire a consultant to come in and do basically 2 things on that site. And one is to do a design, development, and build for the park side of it, and then a schematic or a bond ready concept for the aquatic and recreation side. So that's the RFP is going to encompass those 2 different deliverables. And so we're moving that forward, and I'm hoping to get that RFP posted by the end of May. So, and then Joe Preston, I think when last time he was talking about he's retiring, he's been with the city for 26 years. He's our parks crew leader. And so his position will be posted next week for a parks and facilities manager. So, people are interested, feel free to share that, but it should be posted next week. So, and then his retirement is July 5th. So I'll send that out to the group if the group wants to show up and thank Joe for his experience, or his help. And then our rec programs are clicking along. Carol's doing an amazing job. The Solvent program, the solvent cleanup was a success, and I think there was close to 50 volunteers, and they cleaned up a bunch of different areas. Tipple Creek they concentrated on, but it was a lot of hard work. And just a shout out to Carol and her team and all the volunteers that helped. It was a really successful program. Did a lot of cleanup. So, and then another shout out to Carol. So last time we celebrated her sponsorship solicitation prowess, and as of yesterday, she reported to us she's at $11,000 for sponsorships for concerts and movies, which is amazing. So kind of fun to celebrate that. So, and then this week I entered into a contract for cost recovery work for the department. So the department will be commencing that work at the end of July. that'll be a future agenda item where the consultant will come back and ask for our input on future work as far as sustainability and what we're subsidizing. So that's going to be something to look forward to. I get excited about cost recovery, probably like they do SDC fee and lieu, but that's where I think it's great. I really do. So I'm excited about it. Got the grant submitted for the Sandy Bluff project. So that is on its way. So send good energy out there that take a look at it and give us the thumbs up on that. And then I'm sorry, I have a lot to report tonight. And then our code amendments and Parks and Trail System Master Plan will go to review to the council May 16th, and then final adoption June 6th. So that is also something we're hoping kind of package up and put away. So, and then we received the notice to proceed for the RTP grant, which is the connector trail from the community campus to Sandy River Park. So that is the thumbs up. We've got 2 years to complete that project. So lots of stuff going on and hiring staff. And so if it's okay with you, I'd like to hand it over to John to give a quick update on what he's been working on with the center. So.
Yeah, so our center is now technically open 9 to 4 for the public, excuse me. And with that, we have the capacity to staff that now. So since I was hired or started 4 weeks ago, we've hired Chelsea and then Mark Young as our transportation coordinator and driver. And we currently have 3 applications in for building monitors. I'm working on policy and procedures and training. There's not a lot of paperwork we have for what that job looks like. And I want to make sure that when we onboard new employees, it's a consistent and well thought out model. So that should be done by the end of next week and hopefully start conducting interviews. Then we'll have the capacity here to start renting out the facilities again. And then going along with that is our point of sales. We use a program called Sportsman. And that will, Froggy, learning how to set that up so we can take our cash flow and then it's budgeted accordingly. So I'm working with Chelsea and Rochelle on how to do that. Along with those things, I've been talking with Muna and Andy from transportation. And one of the things that the senior services through our county contract provides is non-emergency medical rides. I know the past 2 years, especially with COVID, that's been done by the transit program, but with hiring Mark, our transportation coordinator, we possibly have the ability to take some of that responsibility on. So the conversation with that just started, but we're looking into and to see how that can develop and how we can proceed going forward with that. And working on a clear focus message really for I was thinking about the Long Stay Parkway of volunteers. We lost a Meals on Wheels volunteer driver. So I started going through all of our processes for how we coordinate and try to get volunteers to join us. And it was, at this point, felt a little disconnected. So trying to streamline that. So we have a clear focus package to hand out to our public to try to recruit. And that's where I've been at for three weeks. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you give a really brief rundown of what the services are that this center provides?
I can. So currently what we are providing right now is Meals on Wheels. So that we have 8 volunteers that come in and take, at this point, frozen meals to seniors that need assistance with food. We also provide recreational activities. So we have somebody that comes in and teaches geriatric Tai Chi, and it's embedded in body movement for the aging services. We have some kinder dance classes that are contracted out to use the space. We provide services and events and field trips for our seniors. So this month in particular, we have a field trip to Sandy High School's musical that they're putting on, and dinner beforehand. We have 2 different hikes, Tickle Creek, and where else are we going? Wildwood.
Yeah.
And then after Wildwood, they'll go to Rapitude, another restaurant, a mystery drive where they don't know where they're going. We sign up and pay, we take them around, think they're going to the gorge, there are other options. We're partnered with a lady that used to volunteer before to come and run bingo. And things of that nature. And the goal moving forward is to get our kitchen staff hired, kind of the same process we're going over with our building monitors, make sure that we're very well prepared. We're kind of balancing this idea of how quickly can we open and provide these services with the quality of the services we're going to provide. Really trying to lean more towards longevity and quality versus just opening as quick as we can.
And I know a lot of senior centers do a lot of outreach in the community looking for seniors, maybe shut in or in need of services and doing contacts and referrals. We do those also. We will be doing those.
Great question. I believe we do. We've talked a lot with Carol about what our marketing needs to look like to reach out to our seniors and what Olga does to intake clients on her end. But at this point with my 3 weeks, I can't answer that. Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, thank you. That's like, I just kind of, I had like my ideas of.
Anything else?
The only thing would be if Tiana, do you want to give an update real quick on, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but on how, I'm talking to the computer here, how your leadership program's going and what you're working on as far as your thesis, your capstone?
We finally actually launched the program, so I've been to 1 4-hour leadership session that I found really interesting. We were talking about everybody's core needs. What there was an acronym used, BICEPS, and I'm sorry, I'm getting over being sick, so my head's a little foggy, so I'm not going to actually try to tell you what that whole acronym means right now, but essentially everybody has one of these, I believe 6 core needs. One like belonging, sorry, belonging, being part of community, and things of that nature. And if you understood where those core needs fell, you could then help foster a more of a team aspect and just being a better leader. So it was a really interesting topic, that first session that we had. And then I'm just really getting going on my capstone, which is going to be to create a integrative pest management policy for the parks department for us. And so I will be bringing that to the parks board to review and hopefully go for your recommendation to adopt and then present to city council. And I'm very close to having a rough draft to then put out to my coworkers for their input, and then be coming to Rochelle so that we can then move to bringing it to you as the board to review.
And have you spent any weekends repairing water lines lately?
Yeah, I did that too. That was a fun learning experience to get to join PW and go out there and do that with them.
I bet it was.
Yeah, thank you, Tiana. Sorry to put you on the spot. I was just excited about the work you're doing, so. Thank you.
That's it. Well, I would say getting adjourned, but we're not really having a meeting, so let's go home.
Thanks, Tiana. Take care. Thanks for joining us.
Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good.